Senate Bill 2 is coming into effect January 1st, 2024. We're going to talk about some litigation and answer some community questions. Let's talk about it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel today. We've got the new year coming up. With that, you have the legislation on Senate Bill 2 also coming up. Of course, we do have the May versus Bonta lawsuit, but we're going to talk about some other litigation that will directly affect that as well. To do that, we've brought an attorney from Michelle and Associates to talk about it in studio. That's Kostas Moros. Kostas, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me again. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. But before we get into that, please, guys, it is helping. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Throw a comment down in the comment section. It really helps with the algorithms. Hit the notification bell so that you get notified as we come out with these videos. We want everybody to be as up-to-date as possible, especially with some of this new litigation and legislation that's already happened. So, Kostas, let's just jump right into it here. Actually, let's back up a little bit. Let's not necessarily start with Senate Bill 2 because CRPA did take proactive measures when we saw Senate Bill 2 coming into the legislature. That came in the form of a lawsuit, CRPA versus City of Glendale. This lawsuit was specifically on sensitive places. Glendale already had some sensitive places set up. Can you just give us a brief walkthrough of that lawsuit? And it has been settled, right? And then tell us the consequences of that lawsuit.
Sure. So we filed that, if many might recall, that Senate Bill 2 started its life as Senate Bill 918 last year, and it failed to pass by a couple of votes because they got greedy and went with urgency and wanted it to take effect immediately. They learned their lesson this year and just did a simple majority so it takes effect later, January 1st. So we filed the Glendale lawsuit because we were ready to take on this issue. And Glendale, although their ordinance did not actually start life out as a sensitive places ordinance, they started that, what they did back in 2013, before carry was really a thing in Los Angeles, they passed a ban on firearm possession on city property. And they did that to stop the Glendale gun show that had been there for many years. That was their workaround. If they ban gun possession on all city property, then you obviously can't have a gun show. But almost unintendedly, that ended up having the effect, once Bruin came out, of banning carry on all city property, because even if you're not there for a gun show, if you're just carrying, that's possession, even with a permit. So we sued Glendale, and to make a long story short, I think they reached a wise decision. It was bad for us in terms of not establishing precedent on carry, but they decided pretty quickly in the life of the case to settle. You know, they said, you know what, we're going to amend our ordinance, we got most of what we wanted out of the settlement, and what that was they can no longer ban carry in the parking structures they own, which is a big deal in Glendale, because if you've been to Glendale and you're visiting the Americana or any of those places, there's these giant parking structures where almost everyone parks their cars if they're going there, and they're city owned. So that was city property and you couldn't carry in it, which basically stopped you from going to those places. Then all the city owned open spaces, all the city-owned parks, and we even got playgrounds, which has been something most cases have lost on, as it applies to people with children or who are there to watch children. So if you have a child, you can carry even on a playground, and if you don't have a child, you can still cross through if it's if you need to get somewhere. You just can't you can't stay in a playground if you're armed. It's against the rules. The only thing we essentially gave up in this settlement for now, because we are challenging it with SB2, was libraries. Glendale didn't want to concede libraries, and we figured since SB2 was coming anyways, we may as well not challenge that aspect of the ordinance for now. So we got, I'd say, 90% of what we wanted out of this settlement. We are pleased with it. Again, the only downside is we didn't get a ruling on to establish precedent for SB2, but that's okay. Yeah.
Well, you said that they settled. You guys at home, that doesn't necessarily mean that the city council in Glendale is on our side. Actually, Jacob, I had the pleasure of watching the city council meeting following that settlement. Go ahead and roll a couple of these clips just so you can see how reluctant they actually were to have this settlement.
So before you is consideration of an amendment to Glendale Municipal Code Section 9.25.050M, which would permit the concealed carry weapons permit holders to an exception to carry on certain city-owned property.
Background, as you're aware, the City Council adopted this ordinance, overall section of 9.25, back in 2013, to ban both the possession and sale of firearms on city-owned property. In 2022, the U.S. Supreme Court, in striking down a CCW permit regulation, held that in order for any regulation on the possession of firearms to be held valid, it had to be a regulation that was rooted in our nation's history, meaning it had to have been a regulation that was in place at the time the Second Amendment was adopted, or perhaps the 14th Amendment was adopted. So there has since then been a lot of litigation challenging numerous gun regulations throughout the country. And the city, as you know, was sued, challenging this particular section of the municipal code regarding possession of firearms on city-owned property.
I don't know. I think we're all kind of loath to comment on it because this is something that none of us, well, I think generally we don't like to be have something like this shoved down our throats through a ruling of the Supreme Court that I think, I'll speak for myself, I think is wrong-headed, and the law works the way it does, and we are not in a very strong position to be able to continue to maintain all the prohibitions that we want. I think all of us, as we move forward on this, however we vote, will be kind of, what's the term? Kind of biting our tongues? I don't know if that's the term, but basically moving into this very, very reluctantly and unhappily, but realizing that it is what it is, and we have to do what we have to do. No to all city property. That includes our parking lots. So now the answer is yes on parking lots. The Civic Auditorium. Now the answer is yes. Doesn't mean we have to hold gun shows there, but if there is some event there, somebody has a concealed carry permit, they are permitted to go in there. And there are some other places, some of the open space in our parks. We don't like this. It's a bitter pill, as Councilmember Kasakian said. But we really don't have good options. So,
And let me also say that the Supreme Court, I believe, is wrong on this. This historical test is absolutely ridiculous. I do not stand against anyone's right to own a musket. Have a musket. I don't care. You know, if our forefathers, our founders had semi-automatic and automatic weapons, I think the War of the Revolution would have probably lasted a fraction of what it did. This is, this is why elections have consequences, because we're stuck with the Supreme Court that we are.
Okay, thanks. So this is a consequence of litigation. I think it's pretty apparent. I mean, this guy literally comes out and says, well, I think that Bruin got it wrong, or I think they got it wrong in Bruin, which is a little bit ridiculous. But, you have these consequences, and you're saying these places that do directly relate to Senate Bill 2. So I guess, first of all, there's work to be done, by the people when it comes to electing officials. I hope that those living in the city of Glendale now know how anti-Second Amendment their city council is. Maybe they can change that. But the legislation on SB 2 has already been passed. We did file, this is May v. Bonta here on Senate Bill 2. Can you go ahead and walk us through that one as well?
Senate Bill 2, we're having a hearing on it on December 20th. We've already fully briefed it, and we expect, I should be careful in these sorts of predictions, but we do expect some sort of victory there. The degree of victory remains to be seen, but we do have the same judge we had in the Boland matter, and at least in the Boland matter, Judge Carney, of the Central District, seemed very sympathetic and seemed to understand the Second Amendment concerns in Boland. So we hope that he will do the same in this case and realize that California is effectively banning carry everywhere.
When you say victory, what do you actually mean? I mean, so we have a hearing where we're doing oral arguments with the judge on the 20th, which is what, maybe a little more than 2 weeks before Senate Bill 2 would actually take effect. So what would be your expectations immediately following those oral arguments?
I'm hoping that he is going to enjoin at least much of it, if not everything we asked for. Hopefully does enjoin everything we asked for, but if not, I do hope we get at least the big stuff like the vampire rule, as I call it, and others have called it, which is the ban on all carry on all private property unless they post a sign, parks, playgrounds, bars, all these places that people tend to visit in their day-to-day lives. Other stuff is more of a stretch. We may not, there's another case alongside us that is challenging things like stadiums and zoos and things like that. I hope we get those too, but that's, I could see why that's a little bit more of a stretch to argue. I don't think they're sensitive, but I also know that most of these places have security anyways. So it's not something we're mostly concerned with, things that are going to affect people in their everyday lives. Like you cannot go anywhere and carry, and that's what we're trying to stop. Yeah.
Well, we did have, this is something that we're obviously going to work on. It's better to be prepared than not prepared, obviously. We did have one of our chapter members from our South Bay chapter in LA send us this map. Jacob, if you can pull up this map on what the prospective sensitive places would be. This is specifically for Redondo Beach. Kostas, looking at this map, how exactly would the government expect citizens to be able to navigate this?
They don't. The reason they pass these laws is to undermine the right to carry. They don't want you to carry. So if you decide that it's too hard because most of the places you go are ban carry, and you just leave your gun at home and don't exercise your right, that's a victory to them. That's what they want. I mean, that's why they pass these sorts of laws. It's not like this was a good faith effort to try and discern a few places where they don't want guns. It's a bad faith effort to stop you from exercising your rights, and that's exactly what we're trying to stop with SB2.
Well, I guess while we're talking about both sides, so obviously the preferential outcome here is what we get a temporary restraining order or a injunction on this law before it comes into effect. Jen O'Hare, who is one of our business affiliates, she is a very strong supporter of CRPA. She has actually sent us some questions because she said she's been getting bombarded with questions, as have we, on Senate Bill 2 and how we would have to conduct ourselves. So, Jacob, I'm sure that you can roll these as we're asking, but I did want to get your take on these questions. So, the first one here, are we not able to carry in private businesses and churches starting January 1st unless they've posted it okay to carry?
That's correct. Unless, of course, you should definitely keep track of this channel and CRPA's website and social media, of course, because we do have that hearing on the 20th, and we think this is the aspect that is most likely to be stopped before January 1st. But if we were unfortunate and we failed to stop it, maybe the judge took too long in his ruling, then yes, as of January 1st, you cannot carry in private businesses or churches unless they post some sort of sign saying it's okay to carry.
Is there a specific sign the businesses need, or can they just make one?
The law itself, the text of the law, unlike what some other states do, does not actually provide a specific sign that needs to be posted. It just says a sign affirmatively, allowing carry. So as of now, there isn't one. Whether DOJ publishes one and recommends you use theirs, I don't know, but it's not in the law. Yeah.
What are all the sensitive places now in California?
California right now, ironically enough, it's been hard to get a carry permit. But once you have a carry permit, California is a pretty good state when it comes to not having a ton of sensitive places. And that's what they're trying to fix, right, quote unquote, here. So there's only a small handful of places currently where you can't carry in California. I don't want to answer off the top of my head because I think I haven't had my coffee this morning. but I know stay away from schools, stay away from public and private schools, federal buildings, courthouses, obviously. that's everywhere. You can't do courthouses, so military bases, that kind of stuff. But most places people go to in their day-to-day lives right now, and what we're trying to preserve with our injunction, your private businesses, your parks, that sort of stuff has never been barred in California. Some localities like Glendale did ban it, but statewide it was not banned. Yeah.
Well, this one is interesting. This is the last one, and I'm paraphrasing here, but effectively, what the question is are all the are there with Senate Bill 2, would there be any places in the street that would be blocked? And I guess the question here kind of relates to, if I'm driving somewhere and I'm carrying, would there be any places that I literally can't drive because I'm near a sensitive place?
No. So you do have a right of way. You can drive through places, but you can't basically stop somewhere. You can't park in a parking lot that's of a business that sells alcohol, for example, unless your gun is locked up in a locked compartment, unloaded. That's the only way. But you can just be passing through somewhere. Yeah, that's fine.
Well, I think that we got some good precedent, which, the city of Glendale lawsuit was really able to provide. I think we got a really positive outlook as far as Senate Bill 2 is concerned, as far as the litigation that we've already been successful on. Do you have any final thoughts going into the new year?
Some final thoughts going into the new year. Well, I'm just eager for that December 20th hearing. I think, we finished briefing on that on November 20th, so I almost expect that Judge Carney is already going to have a ruling drafted, and he's just going to use the hearing for the stuff he's on the fence about, because he's going to have had a month till then. And he actually delayed our original hearing date. It was going to be December 4th. He moved it to the 20th. So my thinking is the reason he did that is he wants to review the briefing. He wants to come to what we call a tentative ruling and use the hearing to basically test a few theories that he has and have us argue with the state on those closer questions. But going into the new year, I'd say keep following CRPA. We appreciate your support. And of course, we have several lawsuits going right now, and we hope for even more. 2023 was a banner year for us. We got a lot of wins on the back of the Bruin ruling, and we hope to continue and expand that in 2024.
Well, thank you so much. I know that you're a busy guy, so time is valuable. Thank you very much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me, as always.
And we're certainly going to follow along with these lawsuits. Please click that notification bell so that you can get notified when these videos drop. We try to drop them as quickly as possible, especially when big things are happening in the courts and up in Sacramento. Also, help those algorithms out, guys. Leave a comment if you've got questions. Throw them down there in the comment section. Like and subscribe to this page. It really helps. Well, thanks again, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.